at least 25 years. Prabhuji has written at least 27 books, okay, on various scriptures. He has been giving us the details of those scriptures which are very hard for us to understand, like Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, and so many other scriptures. Okay, Prabhuji maintains maybe the world's only blog, okay, which writes daily Gita articles, and the name is Gita Daily. Maybe there are like some 4,000 to 6,000 articles which are there, and every day those articles are published. If any of you have never seen it, I mean, please go and visit that portal. Okay. The other thing that Prabhuji also does is, like, he answers any question on spirituality in one of his sites called the spiritualscientist.com. Okay. Any of you, if you have never seen that site, please go visit it. When we started our Bhakti Yoga practice, that was like a great source of information for all of us. And today also, even today. I mean, it's an amazing set of questions people ask, and Prabhuji answers all of them. And Prabhuji, not just like writing books or writing websites, Prabhuji has given at least maybe 400 to 500 lectures so far in 100 plus cities. Prabhuji has been visiting multiple universities. I mean, just the name of some of the universities are like Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, MIT, Cambridge. And he has been a TEDx speaker. He has been a UNESCO speaker. He has also been to multiple companies like Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, and so many. I mean, today, even here in Hyderabad, he's been here for the last few days, and he has been visiting multiple companies and giving a lot of corporate programs. We are really grateful to Prabhuji for being here, gracing this occasion, and giving us the opportunity to serve. So, like, very eager to hear from him. Let's loudly chant Gita Haribol for inviting Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Am I audible to everyone? Yes. Thank you very much for coming today. Let's begin with some prayer. Om Jnana Jnana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishnaveshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Vidimane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharini Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasinubhyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, I'll talk today on the topic of balancing various aspects of our life, our personal, professional, and emotional lives. Was that the topic today? Yes. So let's begin with this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about intelligence, buddhi in goodness, sattva. So I'll explain the meaning of the verse and then recite it 2 times. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. Pravritti is that which is to be done. Nivritti is that which is to be avoided. Can you see that over there? Yes. Some of you can recite with us. Because I've been writing and drawing quite a bit over there. So pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. That which is to be done, that is not to be done. So let's repeat this one. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. Okay? The same thing, that is karya, akarya. Bhaya, abhaya. So now there are certain activities which we do, we feel afraid of doing those. And sometimes that fear stops us from doing something which is important for us. And sometimes that fear is an indicator that maybe this should not be done. Something inside us don't do this. बुद्धि सपार्थ सात्विकी प्रवृत्तिं च निवृत्तिं च कार्याकार्ये भयाभये बन्धं मोक्षं च या वेत्ति बुद्धि सपार्थ सात्विकी. So I'll recite once, and then after that we'll be responsive recite, and then one last time we'll recite it all collectively together. So once last responsive. So you can also be watching so that you can recite it yourself. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham cha ya vetti buddhi saparth satviki. One last time together. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya-karye bhaya-bhaye bandham moksham cha ya vetti buddhi saparth satviki. Thank you. So now this challenge of balance is not just something we are facing today in our society. Yes, today the challenge might be more acute in some ways. But this is a challenge that has been historically there for human beings throughout. Thousands of years ago, when Yudhishthira became the king, at that time, Narada came to meet him. And he told him, "O king, you need to balance three things in your life." At that time, he talked in terms of the three Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha and Kama. So the way it is Artha is, you could say, profit. Dharma is virtue and Kama is pleasure. So now all these three are Purusharthas. Purusha is used in a very context and gender inclusive sense. Human goals, three purposes of human life, virtue and profit. So, what happens if we pursue, if we consider our life? Say this is the domain of activity in our life. So, the idea is that we could say our life has these three sectors: Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Now, if in today's world we can say our Dharma is associated with our temple and our services in the temple. Our Artha is associated with our job and our finances. You aspire every day that we wake up. What is it that we look forward to when we wake up? We need to have something that we look forward to in our life. So calm is, in a positive sense, it is also used in a positive sense. There it is one of the, you could say, the purposes of life, or one purpose of life, not all purpose. It is a driving force in our life. It is what inspires us to do things. So we could say, now if our life is concerned, now if any one of these things takes over our life. So for example, if Artha takes over our life, if work takes over our life completely, then that is when a person becomes a workaholic. Not just a materialist. There may be people who are materialists. But even among materialists, there are materialists those who think that matter is what really matters. But even among them, people are workaholics. That means their work is not just a part of their life, it's their entire life. And bliss, even from a material perspective, even from a spiritual perspective, is destructive. So for them, the work becomes their sole identity. a sole sense of self-worth and success. So, Krishna is saying, don't pursue profit in this sense. This profit could be financial profit, profit could be name and fame. Don't pursue profit at the cost of other things in life. Now, this workaholism. So, I'll start with talking about 3 ways in which we can become imbalanced, and then we'll talk about three principles that we can use to find balance. So, for example, this workaholism is very much possible in today's world because work can be so challenging. There is so much instability. I will lose my job if I don't perform. So, it is very easy to let the work dominate and define one's life. The work is important. There are 2 extremes that the human mind often goes towards. Whenever you do something, some important thing is there in life, there are 2 extremes. One is to make it the only important thing, and the other is to make it unimportant. So finding that it's important, but how important, and how much of my time and energy I have to give for this, that is the key to balance. So we don't make it completely unimportant, we don't make it solely important. Now this can happen in professional life when a person is very passionate about their work. So generally workaholism is associated with men, but it's also possible for men, it's possible to everyone. So we can come back to this later, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. We all understand this. Such people who are workaholics, they can be, they end up being, they will be professional successes. In professional life, they are not as spectacular successful, but they end up personal failures. Maybe their family is broken apart, the children are into unhealthy habits, and then they grow older, they just feel miserable and lonely. What did I do with my life? Our professional achievements, they cannot give us the warmth and the sense of connection and belonging that comes from other aspects of our life. So workaholism is one extreme. Now, the other is wherein we go towards, we make calm the only control. Now, that could be calm in the healthy sense or calm in the unhealthy sense also. When calm it takes over our life, then what happens is that person ends up basically becoming, it's not such a common word, but it is a hedonist. It's not just a materialist, it's a materialist with no boundaries at all. And not only pleasure, but pleasure at all costs. Or rather, it is pleasure without considering any cost at all. So this is a place that people become addicted. So this is where attachment comes in very strongly, and an attachment can degenerate to addictions. So now this can also be over a spectrum, whereas a person will become a hedonist, a person just chases after pleasure, and even if they're chasing after pleasure means it is ruining their health, it could be addictive pleasures, it could be ruining their relationships. A person goes in that direction. That is unhealthy. But even if that doesn't happen, but a person can become very overbearing in their relationships. In their relationships, everybody needs some space. If you feel that somebody is constantly trying to dominate my life and take over my life, then we feel very uncomfortable. So if somebody does that to us, it's uncomfortable. But if we do it to others, that will also be uncomfortable. So parents actually want to care for their children, and it's important. But in caring for the children, the parents don't let the children space to grow, then the children will feel suffocated. And eventually, when they do grow up, they will rebel against the parents. So letting one aspect of life dominate our life, that's not very healthy. So if, we'll come back to this, all of these we'll try to come back again when we get time. But this is if our life is self-centered, only on one particular relationship and say that relationship breaks down. If our defining identity is that particular relationship, that relationship somehow breaks down, then suddenly, who am I? It's not just a relational crisis then, it becomes an existential crisis. Who am I? If our children grow up and children go out and our whole life is centered on taking care of our children. But then, who am I to do after my children are grown up? Do I have an identity and a purpose separate from my children? It could be separate from my any relationship. So the point is, we can't let this alone take over our lives. So karma is important, but again, it's not to be all important. Now, when I say, isn't dharma important? Well, yes, it is. But dharma can have two different meanings. So, when dharma, in the sense of religion or virtue, that takes up the entire life of a person, then that is, at one level, the person becomes impractical. Or that person may even become fanatical. That the Bhagavad Gita is a very realistic book. Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that Sarvarambhahi doshena dhumena viribhavrita. He says every endeavor is covered by fault in this world. And we have to settle there. Nothing is going to be perfect there. I'm trying to cultivate virtue. I can't be flawless. We all have some vices. We're trying to live a life of our religious principles, but the world we live in is contaminated. And sometimes we have to do trade-offs. If a person doesn't do that, then they become very impractical. And sometimes they try to do things which just set them up for frustration and failure. I'll talk about this again. This problem has become in play. That's impractical. And otherwise, the person becomes fanatical. So impractical means I try to do something which is very difficult for me to. Fanatical means not only I do it, I somehow do it, I force everyone else also to do it. So in the cultivation of virtue and the growth of our religious merit, we all do certain things which may be difficult, but we feel inspired to do them. But that doesn't mean everybody can do them. See, when we talk about fanaticism, we may think about people carrying guns and being terrorists and blowing up things. Well, yeah, that definitely is fanaticism. But fanaticism is only not that. It's not only that. Fanaticism, as Krishna points to fanaticism in 1822 in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says the fundamental idea is that yattu krutsnavat ekasmin. We take one thing to be everything. So fanaticism means what? What works for me? That is the only thing that can work for anyone. So when one person starts thinking like this works for me, yeah, it works for me, great. But this is the only thing that everyone has to do for it to work for them. So when we cultivate dharma, so some of us may have the physical constitution by which, say, on days like Ekadashi, we can fast. We can fast even nirjal. We can fast without water. And if we can, that is great. And we feel that I'm doing some tapasya, I'm doing some austerity, and that's good. But then, if we start forcing everyone else to fast, so there are people who are nirjal, and in Marathi we make this joke, we say, there's a nirjal club, and they consider anyone who doesn't belong to that club as a nirlajja club. Nirlajja means shameless. That you people have no self-control, you are attached, you look down on them. So that is bad. We experience strength and we are able to do that austerity. That doesn't mean everybody will be able to do or everybody has to do. And it also doesn't mean that if they are not doing it, that doesn't mean they are not serious about spirituality. They may be serious about some other things. So when we let dharma take over our life, often it's not dharma, it's one aspect of dharma that we can do and we can be proud of doing it. Krishna says some people practice dharma for transformation. And some people practice dharma for exhibition, to show to others how dharmic I am, how virtuous I am. And that's when fanaticism comes. If somebody is practicing dharma for transformation, then they will generally not become fanatical. So these are the ways in which we can become imbalanced in any area of our life. So now let's look at how we can come toward balance. So we will have some time for question answers at the end of the session also. But before that, if any point which I have said right now is not immediately clear, we can have a quick question answer. It's not application of the point, but just the explanation of the point is not clear. Then is there any question like that? Okay. Yes, please.
Dharma also refers to our service.
I'll come to that.
As well.
I'll come to that.
Is it only religion or
No, in this context, it is dharma, artha, kama. In this particular perspective, see that the word dharma in Sanskrit dictionary has something like 775 meanings. So, dharma is one of the most complicated words. So, in this context, dharma refers to religion or virtue. So, I'll talk about how to do balance in three broad principles. I'll use the acronym DIP. Water dips slowly. Water, when it tries to erode, there are some stones blocking the flow of a river. And then the water keeps dipping. Little flow, little flow, little flow, little flow. Gradually it erodes obstacles. So, in general, balance means we will be pursuing things gradually. So, let's look at this. The first key to balance is that balance is dynamic, not static. What that means is that we will never be able to find one formula that we can follow, and we follow that formula for the rest of our life is balanced. So balance is more like a dynamic process of it's not a static formula. So it will be saying, okay, morning from this time to this time I do this, from morning this time to this time I do this, from this time to this time I do this, then in the evening this time to this time I do this, then in the evening this time to this time I do this, this time to this time I do this. Now you may think, oh, I have an excellent plan. And then when we make the plan, and the very first day we start finding life does not cooperate with our plan. We think I'll complete this work in 10 minutes, and that work starts taking 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And the more the work takes, the more our anger starts growing. Isn't it? So now I will talk about the importance of planning a little later. But planning is important. But in principle, the point I'm making is that we can't expect one formula that will help us to be balanced for the rest of our life. Life is itself dynamic. And when life is dynamic, that means we also need to be flexible. We need to adjust accordingly. So, the example we can have is, say, as you can see, this is a cycle. So, suppose somebody is riding a cycle. Now, when they are riding a cycle, at that time, the balanced state of the cycle is a vertical state. If somebody's cycle is tilting too much, we get alarmed. What's the matter? Maybe they want to do some acrobatic feats, that's okay. But the cycle, if it is tilted too much, it's a thing that's about to fall. So the balanced state of a cycle is a vertical state. But if the person comes to a turn, then you cannot take a turn in the vertical state. You tilt the cycle. If you tilt the cycle, we take the turn. But after that, if we let the cycle stay tilted, we'll keep taking the turn and we'll come back at the same point. Isn't it? So we take the tilt and then we again straighten the cycle. Then if you want to go straight ahead, then again, first we turn toward the right, then we turn toward the left. So then again we turn toward the right, again we turn toward the left, depending on how we want to go. So what helps a person balance is, to achieve the balance, is you could say the sense of direction. Which direction do I want to go in? So if the direction is clear, then I may tend toward the right, but I won't say tilted toward the right. I tilt toward the right, and again, then I tilt toward the left. Right now there is no road this way, so tilt left and go this way, then go this way. So when we're thinking of balance, similarly in our life, there are different areas. So rather than, I'll talk about this point more later, but rather than thinking of, it's like these are three areas of my life, so each of these areas, I'll give equal time. Well, maybe, but sometimes in a particular area of life, we may need to give more time. Say, for example, in our work, if there is some urgent project deadline, we may have to stretch ourselves much more over there. And let's keep toward that direction. Sometimes in the family, if there is some wedding, there is some festival, maybe there's some family health emergencies there. That time we will do all the time over there. If in our devotional activities, in the temple there is a festival, the Janmashtami, there's some big event, then we give more time over there. So the idea is that if you are flexible, we understand more time here sometimes, more time here sometimes. But just because in each of these areas, say, if there's a project deadline which requires us to work way beyond our normal time, okay, once in a while that's okay. But if we find that the project deadlines are coming every day, and every day we are expected to work much more than now, then we'll have to really rethink whether is this the kind of job I want. So occasionally, if every day is a crisis, then it is not that the crisis is in our job, the crisis is in our head. But we are not planned properly. We have not made some hard decisions. So every day should not be a crisis. Every day should not be throwing us way out of the balance. So the idea is, instead of thinking of these three, see, I'm here, and say this is my family, this is my temple, this is my job. And instead of thinking that these three are three things pulling me in three separate directions. Sometimes you can feel like that. But what we understand is that actually it's not like this. I am here. And these three are three lanes in my life. So all three are helping me to grow. So there's my family, there's my job, and there's my spirituality. So all three are parallel lanes. And we want to go along all three lanes. Sometimes we may focus more on one lane, and sometimes we come back to the other lane. But all three are ultimately meant to take us in the same direction. So now sometimes you may travel more in one lane, sometimes you travel more in another lane. But the idea is all three are important. And rather than thinking of all three as pulling us in three opposite directions, three different directions, we see all three are meant for our growth. Now, we want to grow in our spirituality, we want to have a happy family, we want to be growing in our profession. So all three are basically the path to growth. And when we see from this perspective, now the word that we discussed is that what is to be done, what is not to be done. Karya Kari Bhayavai. So the idea is Sattva-guna, Prabhupada defines intelligence. Intelligence can have many definitions. But one of the key definitions of intelligence is to see things in their proper perspective. In the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada defines this in his purport. See things in their proper perspective. That is, I said, to see things how important they are. Not to make it all important, not to make it unimportant. But to see things in their proper perspective. So it means, how important is this? And you could take this in a further question, how important is this now? So something may be much more important for me in the long term, but this is important for me now. So if we understand that balance is a dynamic process, not a static formula, then we won't get frustrated when our planning to balance our life doesn't work. What we see, okay, maybe this level of planning doesn't work for me. So, but maybe I can have a little less level of planning. I'll come to this in the last part of our session again, but here the principle is that it's dynamic. So be ready to be flexible. Sometimes give more time to one side, sometimes give more time to another side. So, gradually, so the next part is integration, not fragmentation or separation. What that means is, we need to see that the various aspects of my life are integrated. So, this is actually, in fact, the crisis for Arjuna also. Why do you think Arjuna became unwilling to fight at the start of the Bhagavad Gita? What was the reason? Because of family attachment. Okay, that's one answer. Indecision. Okay, but find compassion. Fundamentally, what was his crisis? Fear of what?
Committing sins.
Fear of, sorry?
Committing sins.
Committing sins, committing wrongdoing. Actually, those are attachment and fear and compassion and all those are true. But if you look at the flow of the Bhagavad Gita is that Arjuna was torn between two dharmas. One was his Kshatriya dharma. If he considered himself a Kshatriya, he should have fighting. But the other was his Kula dharma. Kula dharma is a fighting because there are people of hands. Arjuna came to the battlefield in a mood of Kshatriya, ready to fight. But when he came in the middle, when he came in the middle, that is the time when he saw that initially he was thinking, who are these people who have come to assist the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra? That's what he wanted to say. But as soon as he saw that, now it registered in his mind very gravely that they are all my Swajana. They are not just the supporters of Duryodhana. They are my Swajana. They are my relatives. They are my family. Swajanam vikatham bhatva sukhinasya madhava. So initially, we could say, initially means chapter 1 start, we could say. Arjuna was in favor of his Kshatriya. But chapter 1 end, the weighing scale started shifting for him in terms of his Kula dharma. And thus, Arjuna felt torn. Should he be doing Kshatriya dharma or should he be Kula dharma? And we all can identify with this. Say, if there is some important event for our child, maybe a child is performing some drama, and we want to go and watch it. And at that time, our boss, they're working, our boss tells us, you have to work tonight. Now I have to go there. Now, what do we do at that time? Now it depends. So, am I a parent first and a software professional later? Or am I a software professional first and a parent later? It's not an easy decision. So, Arjuna had this dharma support. And that's why when he asks Krishna, his question is, Pruchami tvam dharma sammudha chetava. I'm bewildered about what is dharma. So here the dharma is in another sense. Dharma is not religion, dharma is not just virtue. Dharma is it's not just simply duty, because both are duties. Kshatriya dharma is also duty, Kula dharma is also duty. But it is, what is the right thing to do right now? So when he's asking about dharma, what is the right thing? Answers gradually. But the point here is, sometimes we all can feel fragmented. That these different parts of our life are pulling us in different directions. So what do we do at that time? So the Gita starts by telling Arjuna that before you can decide activity, what is the right thing to do, underlying activity comes identity. Who are you? So Arjuna is thinking that should I fight or should I not fight? That is, am I a Kshatriya or am I a Kurunandan? And Krishna says this is much more fundamental. So basically, how the Gita starts is that we have many functional identities. So our functional identity will be based on our relationships. We are brothers or sisters, we are sons or daughters, we are parents, we are husbands or wives. It can be based on a job, it can be based on our gender, it can be based on our nationality. Say, it can be based even on our income level. At a functional level, it can also be based on our particular religion. Somebody is Hindu, somebody is Muslim. All these are our functional identities. Now, underlying them all is, Gita says, our fundamental identity. The fundamental identity is that we are Atma. And we are not just Atma, Mamayu Amsho Jiva Loki. We are souls who are parts of Krishna. So now we have a functional identity and we have many functional identities and we have a fundamental identity. So the idea is the Gita does not dismiss the functional identity, but it says start with the fundamental identity. So I was just in Australia a few months ago and a few weeks ago. Now when I went there at immigration, now my purpose of going to Australia is to teach the Bhagavad Gita. That's my main purpose. And one of the aspects of teaching Bhagavad Gita is that our identity is not just our physical body, we are spiritual beings. But when at immigration they're asking me where are you from, I can't say I'm a soul. That's my fundamental identity. But there, I have to tell my functional identity. My functional identity is that I'm Indian. I have Indian passport. So, our functional identity is not to be devalued or trivialized. It is important. However, if we equate our functional identity, it becomes our soul identity. That is when there are two problems that can come. The first problem is that then it can conflict with other functional identities. That, as I said, if my soul identity is somebody, the soul identity is as a professional. What about their identity as a parent? If somebody thinks their soul identity is based on one aspect of their life, then if my soul identity is that I'm a wealthy person, I have this level of wealth, then what will happen is that I may start dehumanizing the people who don't have as much wealth as I have. I can start humiliating them, treating them very badly. Any kind of discrimination that happens because we reduce ourselves to one aspect of our identity and we reduce others to another aspect of it. It's just one aspect of their identity. There could be racial discrimination based on people's skin color. There could be gender discrimination. We reduce ourselves and others only to one aspect of it. There could be religious discrimination. There can be so many forms of discrimination. So when we reduce, so okay, if we are working in a secular country, I may have my religion, but I can't expect everyone to have that same religion. So I need to learn how to live with people with other religions, who have other religions. So in one sense, reducing our identity to any one functional identity, that will make us intolerant. Similarly, we may be male or female. If we start considering the other gender to be bad, just based on the gender Krishna says, no, there's a Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. There are three modes, and whatever the specific nationality or gender or race or religion, there are people in all the three modes, in each of these dimensions. So if we equate our functional identity with our soul identity, that is what will conflict and then we will become intolerant because of it. And the other conflict is, if our functional identity becomes our soul identity, then it is temporary. I think of myself as software engineer. And then tomorrow I lose my job and somehow I don't get any job as software engineer. Then okay, we might be able to get some other job, but if we have defined ourselves as that, then it will make us insecure. So we don't want to be intolerant, we don't want to be insecure. So equating our functional identity with our as our soul identity, that is what we do. And whenever people suffer either of these, intolerance or insecurity, these breed imbalance. So when we are intolerant, it's imbalance. We don't take this all important. When people are insecure, then they overreact. Any problem comes, okay, it's not such a big deal, but for them it becomes a big deal. So the key to balance, Krishna says is, if you go back to this diagram, that actually we start with our fundamental identity. And then based on the situation, we decide, okay, right now I need to focus on this. Then later on, after some time, for another role, I need to focus on this. Another part, I may need to focus on this. So there are different roles that we play. And when we are playing a particular role, we need to be wholehearted in that role. But we don't let ourselves think that I am that role. See, the role, while we are playing it, is important. It is not to be trivialized while we are playing that role. But after we have done that role, we don't reduce our identity to that role. So, for example, I used to do a lot of college outreach earlier. Even now I do. I do young boys, for example, they come to know about bhakti and they see, oh, this is so wonderful. They say, I just want to become a brahmachari. I want to dedicate my life to this. Okay, if you have that serious aspiration, that's okay. But sometimes it just is like an escape way from the hard work of studying your college and getting a job. And then they will say that, all my relationships are temporary. My parents, they make a quote from scripture also, I've had so many mothers and fathers in so many lifetimes. Well, if you see the Bhagavatam, that words comes. But when does it come? There is a Prince Chitraketu, there's a King Chitraketu who has a son. After a lot of effort, he gave his son Harshishok. And somehow Harshishok passes away. The father is devastated. And then the sages, Nagini and Angiramuni, they get the child's soul to come back. And when the soul comes back, at that time, the soul says, I have had so many mothers and fathers. Which father and which mother are you talking about? But when is he saying this? After that relationship is over. The person has died. And the soul has gone on next journey. And when the soul has gone on next journey, then when you look back, yeah, this was the latest life, but there is no life. But when we are in a relationship, we cannot devalue the relationship saying that it's temporary. We don't want to overvalue it so that it becomes our soul identity. But we don't want to devalue it. So, if we are in a particular relationship, we need to do that responsibly. If we are studying as students, we need to study well. If we are doing a job as a professional, we need to do that job reasonably well. So we can't say this is temporary. Well, yeah, it's temporary, but then the salary you're getting also is temporary. Isn't it? We don't want to do the work, but we want the salary. That's not fair. So the idea is that our functional identities we consider we don't want to overvalue them and we don't want to devalue them. So when we overvalue them, they become our soul identity. When we devalue them, we become irresponsible. And the Gita is definitely not about becoming irresponsible. Is that we value appropriately. So the idea is that once we understand that I am a soul, I am a part of God, then that fundamental identity, knowing the fundamental identity, what it does is it gives us security. Because this identity is never going to be taken away from us. I may have a particular identity. I may be in a particular relationship, I have identity based on that. But if that relationship is no longer there tomorrow, then that identity will be taken. But the identity that we are souls, we are parts of Krishna, this identity can never be taken away from us. So that gives us, so it's not just the idea that I am a soul, but it becomes the foundation of my various roles in life. Soul, I can do whichever role is required for me. Basic balance, the idea is that if we have some foundation that is unchanging, then we can manage various things. So to be able to balance, what we need is to periodically go back to the foundation. Okay, my job is pulling me in this direction, my family is pulling me in this direction. Now, from an ultimate perspective, actually, we could say that we are souls. Yes, that is true. But here, if I see, I put our religion also as one of our identities. It is not our sole identity. Now, I'm not just talking in terms of, say, the Muslim Christian kind of thing. At present, when we are functioning, if I consider my bhakti, that at one level is one of the activities that I do. I do some seva, I do some sadhana, I come to satsang. That is one of my activities. It's important. Now, it will help me realize who I am. And that is true, and we'll come to that. But this is one of my identities. So that's the second part. We start with integration. Integration means all of my various things that are pulling me in different directions, they are unified at a fundamental level. I am a spiritual being. I am a part of Krishna. And these are the various roles I am playing. What is the acronym? So P is purpose. So we focus on purpose, not on convenience. What do I mean by this? Let me explain that. That purpose, when I'm trying to balance these activities, I don't just choose that which is convenient. One of the reasons things become imbalanced is that we use one of these things, if there are three roles in our life. We use sometimes whichever is the path of least return, least resistance to get away from the other things. Then we can't balance ourselves. So, when I was doing youth outreach, one day one young boy came to me and he said to me, I want to become a brahmachari. Okay, I've never seen him come regularly to the temple, you're not regularly sadhana, you're not doing any seva. So I said, you really want to become a brahmachari? He said, yes, by Sunday I will decide. Oh, okay. I said, what is going to happen on Sunday? He said, I have proposed to a girl. And she has said she'll give an answer by Sunday. If she says no, I'll become a brahmachari. Now, there's a big difference between frustration and renunciation. So, if he is thinking of becoming a brahmachari, is it because of renunciation or frustration? Frustration. Now, what is the difference in terms of analysis? We could put out there are two things. There is the desire to enjoy, and there is the ability or the resource to enjoy. So, if you consider this to be like a table, when there is renunciation, there is the ability to enjoy, but there is no desire to enjoy. On the other hand, there is frustration, there is a desire to enjoy, but there is no ability to enjoy. So, frustration everybody gets in life. But frustration is not a qualification for initiation. So why I'm talking about this is purpose, not convenience. Sometimes we start prioritizing one thing because we are frustrated with other thing. And we are running toward one thing simply to get away from the other thing. So, in our family relationship, there's some issue. So you just go to the temple and start doing a lot of seva. Okay, that may be fine, get some relief. But if that becomes our escape way from dealing with family issues, that is not a healthy life. See, we all need some relief, some comfort, some relaxation, that is good. But that shouldn't become our permanent escape way from our permanent dodging of serious issues in life. We have to deal with issues when they come up. So, when we start, we have to actually decide the balance. It can't be decided based on convenience. Oh, this is easy to do, this is troublesome, forget it. So that's the point of not choosing based on convenience. Now, what does it mean choosing based on purpose? So I earlier talked about this. Let me put it this way: this is a fundamental identity, and then we have various functional identities. Now the idea is, if you consider Krishna is here, and I am here. So actually, through all our functional identities, we are meant to serve Krishna. So the idea is our various functional identities. It is not just that if we consider the functional identities, only three right now. Let's consider our job, our home, and our temple or devotional center. Now it is not that we serve Krishna only by going to the temple. Yes, definitely. By going to the temple, by doing direct spiritual activities, we are serving Krishna. But our family, it's also filled with people who are parts of Krishna. So by taking care of our family, also we are serving Krishna. Now our job is also by Krishna's arrangement, I think. That it is Krishna who has given certain abilities. It is Krishna who has given us opportunities to use those abilities. So our job is also our service to Krishna. Now, yes, there are different ways of serving Krishna. Now, okay, there are some people who take one verse of the Bhagavad Gita and misapply it. Have any of you heard this saying?
Work. Haribol.
Work is worship.
Famous.
See, everybody likes certain parts of the Bhagavad Gita. What serves their purpose? Now, that is not Bhagavad Gita as it is. That is Bhagavad Gita as you are. So, now Krishna actually, if you look at the verse, what he says in 1846, he says, Yataha pravrtir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. So it is not work is worship, it is swakarmana tam abhyarcha. It is more, if you want to literally translate it, through your work, worship me. Worship him. Him is that Lord. So Karnataka Siddhim Vindatiman. Now what is the difference between this and the previous meaning? A work is worship. See, work is worship is the idea that work is intrinsically worship. Whereas through your work is infused with devotion. When work is infused with service attitude, with devotion, then it becomes worship. So if work is considered to be intrinsically worship, these two are not the same, they're not equal. So if work is intrinsically worship, then we may say, is a beggar also worshipping? Is a robber also worshipping? That's their job. What about somebody who is a contract killer? What is also worshipping? There definitely some difference. They're not, all these works are not the same work. So it is not that work itself is worship. Another way to look at it, if work is worship, then the person who works the hardest, the person the greatest worshipper, is a workaholic the greatest worshipper. Or we take it further. The among the creature that works the hardest is the donkey. The donkey is the greatest worshipper. No. Now work is worship. Here, I don't want to make fun of this particular principle. See, work is worship is okay as an ethical principle. It is not a spiritual principle. What do I mean by ethical principle? That idea that all work should be respected, that all workers should be respected, that just because somebody is doing a particular job, don't look down at them, don't demean them. In terms of that, if you're talking about it as an ethical principle, to treat all work with respect and to treat all workers with respect, that is fine as a principle. But when we are saying this, when people claim it to be a spiritual principle, what they mean is that work is intrinsically worship and therefore there is no need to do any worship. My work is itself my worship. No, our work is one part of who we are. If you look at the full words, what Krishna says is, Yataha pravrittir bhutana yena sarvam yantati. So the idea is, if we consider, this is the spiritual level of reality. And this is the material level of reality. There's one understanding is, okay, Krishna is at the spiritual level. And then, say, we exist here. And we practice bhakti to go to Krishna at the spiritual level. Now this is one understanding, and it is true, no doubt. But what Krishna is saying is that I don't just exist at the spiritual level. I don't just exist in the temple. I exist in your home also. I exist in your office also. The jurisdiction of Krishna extends everywhere. So actually, Krishna contains all of existence. Yataha pravrittir now, by from whom everything has come. Yena sarvam idam, by whom everything is pervaded. From whom everything has come, by whom everything is pervaded. That Lord you can worship through your work. So it's based on a deep philosophical understanding that Krishna pervades all of existence. Then our work becomes worship. So it's not that somebody just goes and works, there's a lot of work and call that worship. No, there's no remembrance of God, there's no intention of serving God, there's no understanding of the presence of God. Then that work won't be worship, that work will only be work, which will entangle the person. So here, when I talk about purpose, I said that we serve Krishna, we understand Krishna is the purpose of my life, and He is the purpose through my devotional activities, He is the purpose through my work, and He is the purpose through my family. In this way, our purpose will unify us. So now we could say, Bhakti itself, as Bhakti is not just turning away from the world to go toward Krishna. You could call this as immersive bhakti. That is definitely that we all need some time. And we just turn off the world and turn toward Krishna. We do our japa, we do our sadhana, we do our puja, we come to satsang. So we are coming to satsang, usually we constantly at our phone, oh, what is happening, what happened, what happened. Those other roles, there are sometimes when we can immerse ourselves in Krishna. At least every day, a few moments in our life, when we actually feel that there is a reality beyond the reality of this. The purpose of immersive bhakti is not just to get some rituals done, do some puja, chant some japa, a particular number of mantras. But during that time, at least for a few moments, we remember there is a bigger reality. We actually experience some calm, some connection, some strength. There is something else. We all have that experience. We don't have to see Krishna, but we don't have to see Shamsundar Krishna to know that when we do Kirtan, we experience it. When we do puja, there is some connection we experience. And that depends on how much we are immersed in it, how much we try to engage ourselves. I saw one example of nowadays people do multitasking. And sometimes some activities you can do multitasking. You can drive a car, you can be talking with someone, you can be hearing audiobook. Some activities don't require much much acquisition, we can do multitasking. But some activities we should not do in multitasking. You know, if I am having heart surgery, I don't want to buy surgery to do multitasking. So I saw an example of multitasking in bhakti. So what are it? One person in the cartoon, one person was doing puja, and then looking at their phone was latest message. You know, if we are doing, oh, we may not do it puja, but we may do it with japa, we may do it with other things. So the point is that when we are doing puja, it's not just, okay, get this 7 rounds done. It's not like that. So you want to experience the connection with Krishna. So there has to be a timing for immersion. And when we immerse ourselves in Krishna, that's when we situate ourselves in our fundamental identity. We ground ourselves in the reality that Krishna exists and that I am a part of Krishna. And then Krishna talks about this in 12.8 and 9. He talks about immersive bhakti. But after we have immersed ourselves in Krishna, then we turn toward the world and act in a mood of service to Krishna. That is inclusive bhakti. By inclusive means what? Bhakti that includes the world in its scope. Bhakti that includes our various roles and responsibilities. In that. Krishna talks about this in 12.10 and 11. And he says that through your work, you do your work for me. You can't work for me, and you do work for some good cause and offer the results to me. So this is also included in the domain of bhakti. So bhakti has both these aspects, immersive and inclusive. And when we understand this part, that actually my purpose is to serve Krishna through all activities of my life, then it is at that purpose that will bring some sense of clarity for us. So sometimes I serve Krishna more through my family responsibilities. Sometimes I serve Krishna more through my professional responsibilities. And sometimes I serve Krishna more through my direct devotional activities. So the unifying understanding is, philosophically, we have all heard that we are parts of Krishna. This is the last point I make over here. We are parts of Krishna. But what does this mean in practical terms? What it means is we have parts in Krishna's plan. That is the practical implication of that. If I am part of Krishna, that means I have a part in Krishna's plan. Say, if somebody is a part of the Indian cricket team, then they have a part in that team. So you are a fielder, you are a bowler, you are a batsman, you are this, like that. So every one of us has a part. And our part is different from the parts of other people. How we balance our life will be different from how others balance their lives. But we all have a part. And that part may involve multiple roles. So rather than thinking, I have to take care of so many things, and I have to take care of my family, I have to take care of my job, and on top of that, I have to practice bhakti. Sometimes we start thinking that bhakti is another to do in our list of to-dos. I already have so many things to do. Well, yeah, bhakti can seem like that. But if we understand bhakti as giving us the conviction, the security that Krishna has a plan for my life, that I am a part of Krishna's plan. And then eventually that will give us the security that, okay, the various roles that are there, Krishna will guide me how to integrate them. What to give more time to, what to give less time to. Krishna will guide you in this situation. And that is how bhakti can seem to be another to do in our list of rules. But bhakti is actually another way to do it. Another way to do our to-dos, you can say. That means we do our various to-dos in a mood of service to Krishna. It's not just my family that I'm taking care of, it's not just my job I'm fighting against the world to do. It is actually Krishna who is guiding me. It's Krishna who I'm serving through all this. And when we have this another way to do our to-dos, this is actually Buddhi Yoga. Krishna says, I will give you the Buddhi to do yoga. I will give you the intelligence by which you can come to me. Krishna talks about this term in many places, but I am referring to the Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Manapayamite. So So when we have that attitude of service to Krishna, whatever we do, Vachitam Preeti Purvaka, Krishna, you are a master, I am a servant. Please guide me. How do you want me to serve you? How do I manage all my responsibilities? How do I balance them? Please guide me, Krishna. If we have that attitude, that prayerful service attitude, is Krishna will guide us. And that's how we will bring about not just balance in the various parts of our life, but harmony in various parts of our life. Our bhakti will actually make us better parents, it will make us better professionals. And in that way, balance is good, but better than balance is actually harmony. And actually, what bhakti can ultimately do is bring harmony in the various aspects of our life. Because we understand through all these aspects, ultimately, I am serving Krishna. And Krishna will guide me how best I can serve him. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. I started by talking about imbalance in three forms. First, imbalance where a person just goes into their work, it is only their artha that makes them workaholics. Then, if a person just goes into kama, that makes them a hedonist, not a materialist, but a hedonist. Person goes only toward dharma, that makes them a fanatic, an extremist. So we discussed that as individuals, we need to be able to balance all these three aspects of our life: our dharma, artha, and kama. So then we discussed three principles for achieving this balance. What was the acronym? What was D? So when you seek balance, it's a dynamic process, not a static formula. So instead of thinking that I'll make one plan and that will help me to manage my balance my entire life, we understand that it's like a cycle, like an example. We focus on the direction, not the route. So sometimes I move this way, sometimes I move this way. So we look at how these are all three distinct lanes on the same path. So dharma, artha, kama, they're not pulling us in different directions, but they're all taking us in the same direction. They're all helping us to grow in our life. Then what is the second part? Integration. Integration, not fragmentation. So we discussed here about how we have functional identities, many functional identities, but beyond that, we have a fundamental identity. And we start with a fundamental identity, and then we choose which of these functional identities we focus on. If our functional identity becomes our sole identity, then that can make us intolerant or insecure. Intolerant because we do not give time for any other role in our life. Finish my class. So, focusing on a functional fundamental identity can give us a sense of balance, a sense of security. The last part was we focus on purpose, not convenience. Not that just because this is too troublesome, so I'll do that. No, that would be, we discussed the difference between frustration is not the same as renunciation. So if we start using our spirituality or any other aspect of our life to escape from other aspects of life, that is not healthy. And then we talked about how the various roles in our life are ultimately meant to serve Krishna. So we have our fundamental identity, then we have our functional identities, and then we have Krishna. So we serve Krishna through our various identities. In this connection, I talk about bhakti being having two aspects: immersive and inclusive. So we have to have some time we turn away from the world to turn toward Krishna. But then we turn toward the world and act in the mood of service to Krishna. When we see bhakti as both of these aspects, then bhakti will not just another to do, but another way to do. That we understand Krishna has a plan for my life, and whatever I am doing, if I just try to serve Krishna prayerfully, then He will guide me. He will give me Bhakti yoga. What to do when, how to balance, that is what Krishna will guide us from within. And thus we will bring not just balance, but harmony into our lives. Thank you very much. Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for enlightening us, how to balance between our various duties and to decide on what is the right thing to do at the right time. In fact, one of the things that I realized is like I'm not a role, right? I'm not a software engineer, I'm not a father, but I just have a role. I mean, that's just a role that I have, but I am not that role because most of the time we end up just starting to relate ourselves with that person. If somebody asks me, who are you? I'm a software engineer. No, I'm a soul. We should not forget that. And now is the time when we can actually get into question answers. If anybody has questions, please raise your hands and we'll pass on the mic. I do have a question, I can start with that. So the question I had was, how do we handle the situations when the people around us are not aligned with the duties, our focus, our purpose, they are not aligned with it.
Stand.
try if it works. So, okay, this is not uncomfortable. So basically, now when if I consider again, say I am here, the other person is here, and Krishna is here. So I have my values. I want to connect with Krishna. This is put it the first relationship. Then I have a relationship with the other person. That is second. And then the third is that person's relationship with Krishna. So now, ideal would be that if 1, 2, 3, there is a synergy among all of them. That means that we go closer to Krishna, other person also goes closer to Krishna, and then we come closer to each other. Srila Prabhupada said this was one of the purposes of ISKCON, in fact, to bring everyone closer to each other and closer to Krishna. This is the ideal situation. But we rarely live in an ideal world. So if that is happening, then we try to see each of these as distinct or independent rules. That means we focus on one, we focus on two, and then we leave three to the other person. That means they don't agree with our values. Okay, let them do what they want. They may not want to practice bhakti, they may not want to share the same interests that we have. But in that relationship, whatever is basic expectation from us, we do that. And we make sure that we have time and space for our bhakti. So, unfortunately, in such situations, what we do is, we make three the most important. We obsess over that person. You do this, why are you not doing this, why are you not doing that? And then, when we make three the most important, then it can go anyway. You may take two or one or whichever. Generally what happens is, you may have three and then two becomes less important. One may be here, but one ends up going over here. What do I mean by that? If I'm constantly forcing someone to do something, then that creates a stress in that relationship. And when there is stress in that relationship, that affects our bhakti also. If I had a big quarrel in our home, we had a big quarrel in our workplace, especially in home may affect more than workplace. But then, if you sit down to chant, you will not be able to. So what we need to do is to separate these three. And most people, if we are not forcing them to do something, they will also not force us to do something. And then we have that space, we have our space, they have their space. So try to see these three as separate. Krishna talks about this, separating this three in 12:15. And he says, Yasmano dvijate loko, lokano dvijate chaya, harsha marsha bhayo deve, mukto yah sachame priya. He says, one who does not disturb others and one who is not disturbed by others. Such a person is very dear to. So the idea is, if somebody is We don't force someone to do something, we don't disturb them too much. On the other hand, just because they don't agree with our way of living or our way of thinking, we don't let that disturb us. So don't disturb others, don't disturb others. Let them live their life and we live our life. And of course, we have a shared life also. But we find the parameters where the shared life can go on. Okay? Did I answer the question?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you. Alright, so you just put it like you can use this mic.
Yeah, others, if they have questions, they can ask.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, my question is that how can we identify our fundamental identity?
How can we identify means how do we realize?
Yes, Prabhuji. Like, there are so many roles. Often I get confused that what is the fundamental identity, whether that's Prabhuji.
So, if you want to understand our fundamental identity, it's like in science, there are two aspects. There is first theory, and then there is the experiment. So the theory gives us propositions about the nature of reality. And after that, the experiment helps us to prove or disprove whether it's like that or not. So now, spirituality is also like science. In spirituality, there is philosophy and there is practice. And the practice may sometimes be called as religion, but philosophy and practice. So the philosophy, what it tells us, it is through practice that we realize it. So, for example, the philosophy tells us that we are souls, we are parts of Krishna. Now, when we practice, say, when we come to a temple and participate, now we peace, some joy, something we experience. Sometimes when we go to some pilgrimage, we physically very tired. When we reach that place, suddenly we feel some vibes, we feel something. What is this? Now, at the level of the body, we are tired. At the level of our mind, we will be distracted, exhausted, so much noise and all this. But suddenly, we shall experience something very. That is, we are experiencing something at this level of the soul. So it is practice. Philosophy that gives us conceptual understanding, and the practice that gives us realization. Now, having said that, once we have understood our fundamental identity, we also need to look at our functional identities. That is, okay, what are the talents that I have? What are the interests that I have? And based on that, we pursue things in our life. Okay, this is what is more important, this is what is less important. So, but if we don't have that fundamental identity, then when we start looking at our functional identity, say, okay, I'm good at athletics, but this person is so much better than me. I'm good at math, but this person is so much better than me. And I'm terrible at music. I'm terrible at it. We will start with the foundation of comparison and insecurity. But start with our fundamental identity. Then we can look at what we have and we'll have that foundation of security by which we can understand our talents and gradually develop. Thank you. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna.
So it's an extension to the previous question. What about the work that we are doing during the search of a fundamental identity that doesn't align with the work that we've been performing? Like, give me an example. It's like I'm in the search of my fundamental identity and the current work that I've been doing, I don't like it. It's like, but it's equally important. Let's say it's in my job, but it's equally important because it gives me life. But I don't feel it aligns with my fundamental identity. But like, how do I prioritize it?
In what way does it not align with you?
It's like it doesn't give me the connect, or it doesn't give me the fulfillment.
Yeah. See, our functional identity, one of the identities we can talk about is in terms of our Varna. Varna is not caste, it is more of psychophysical orientation. See, we all have particular interests which we are born with. This Varna Krishna talks about is the Guna and Karma. So guna broadly refers to when we have the qualities for something, then we are comfortable doing the activity. And when we have the karma for some activity, when we have the karma, am I audible to everyone?
Yeah.
Then we are competent at doing that. So we all need to, while doing various activities in our life, we look at what we are comfortable doing and what we are competent at doing. Now, it's not very easy. Ideal would be that you say there's something I'm comfortable doing and something I'm competent doing. So, if you find the intersection of that, that is the best. So, if we don't, then it may be that I'm competent at doing something. I'm good at my job, but I don't really feel very good at it. If we have neither guna nor karma for a particular role, then it's best to shift. Best to shift to some other role. That if we neither like what we are doing, we don't get any satisfaction in doing it. Let's say somebody has the guna for music, somebody has the guna for maths, and somebody has the guna for language. Then when they are just playing with number, they are playing with word, they are playing with musical notes, just forget the whole world. They're just happy with that. Now of course, they also have to build a career, we have to earn a livelihood in that. So we have to look at that also. But the point is that if we consider 4 quadrants, there's guna means comfort, and karma means competence. So the ideal is if we can find this question. If we are not even competent at it, then better we need to shift. Otherwise, we will have to shift sooner or later. But if we are competent, then we do it as a way for earning a livelihood, as a way for maintaining a social respectability. But also keep exploring. Is there something else that interests me? So to understand all this, self-observation is very helpful. Self-observation means what? When we are doing various things in our life, which are the things which I really feel satisfied with? Which are the things I look forward to doing? Or if we have people around us who are our relatives, who are our friends, they will tell us, when you are doing this, we seem to come alive. People talk about different subjects. Now, when we talk about someone we care for, someone we love, then immediately we come alive. So, through self-observation association, we can find out. Okay. Thank you. Any other question? Is there another? Can we have some question will come back? Let me know when to stop.
Yeah, we can keep on going only. We have a small dance that kids have prepared. After we're done with the question answer, maybe in 5-10 minutes, we can do a small dance.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
What is and when two functional identities are not complementing with each other? How to choose which functional identity is to be given more importance? Like for example, if a person is a soldier and at the same time if he is a father, and if he chooses one functional identity, he may not fulfill another functional identity. Though basically he might be identifying his fundamental identity, but then he may have to compromise with one or other functional identity. At that time, how the decision is to be taken?
Yeah, that's tough. But then it is true. That was Arjuna's situation. When he chose, he identified the Atma, but still the outer problem remained. And when Arjuna fought a war, he was not just fighting the war of the Kshatriya. At the end of the Gita, Arjuna says to Krishna, Karishye Vachanam. He says, I'm not fighting because I'm a Kshatriya and I have to fight. I'm fighting because that is your will for me. And that's why I'm fighting. So sometimes one role that means he had to fight against his own relatives and he had to kill those relatives also. Just terrible thing to have to do at the time. But then once that particular role was, that particular duty was done, Arjuna did not take out vengeance on Dhritarashtra. But your son who did all this. No, your son was the problem. He fixed the problem. It did that afterwards. Arjuna they took care of Dhritarashtra. They took care of Gandhari also. So, in the time when one identity has to be prioritized, we prioritize that. But once that particular role is done, then as much as possible we do other roles also. Like somebody is a soldier, if they have taken up that job, then that involves that risk. They can't back out and say that there is a risk in that job that you have to go to fight and you may die. And of course, the risk of dying is there in every job, in life itself. But if a job involves a particular risk, then just because the risk is there, we can't back out from that. Krishna says every endeavor is covered by falls, just as fire is covered by smoke. Sarvarambhari doshe dhamminarmi. So in such situation, that it is the responsibility of the country, responsibility of the community to help shoulder the responsibility, the roles, to help in fulfilling the duties of the role. So the country will probably take care of the war veterans, or the war veterans' families, or the martyrs' families, whatever. That's an extreme situation. But yes, sometimes you may have to prioritize one role at the expense of another. So if somebody is a devotee and they're a soldier, they have to fight. But that's the job that they have to do. Yes, another question.
Just go with the question.
Yeah.
Who has the mic?
He has the mic.
I have the mic. Thank you. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, Prabhuji, I have a question that in this age of Kali right now, in Kali Yuga, there is fault in every work, right? Whether if you are in technical work, some customer is being cheated. To a certain extent, I'm not saying completely cheated, but if you are in a finance work, some government is being cheated. If you are in some other work, something is happening which is not healthy at all. So there is, I know there is an area of influence, area of concern. Some things are not in our influence, but still, it kind of gives a bad feeling when you do this work, when you go outside, that in front of you it's happening. So how do you, even though it is according to your competence, even though it is according to your comfort, but you land up at a place where you are not happy with the way things are going. So where is the line we should draw?
It's a good question. See, what is the role of ethics in bhakti? So, how do we decide how much to focus on? Am I audible to you?
Yes. So keep it yeah. Oh, keep it straight. Keep it straight.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
So, in general, as devotees, we should try to live ethically. As it's that if you consider with respect to ethics, people say that there is ethical behavior and there is unethical behavior. Now, in unethical behavior also, there is a spectrum. Spectrum in the sense that there is unethical behavior that is sometimes unavoidable. Unavoidable means that without doing something unethical, nothing gets done. Then we want to be devotees of Krishna. We want to be ethical, but we want to be devotees of Krishna. So our primary purpose is to practice bhakti. So it says, suppose somebody is in a particular post, and then there is some kind of questionable ethical behavior, some kind of corruption or something like that. That just everybody does that, and you can't get any work done without you. Then, if a particular person wants, if that is their calling, they want to become an anti-corruption activist, they want to become an anti-corruption campaigner, then that is entirely up to them. If that was their inspiration, can a devotee become an anti-corruption activist? Of course, devotee can do that. But does that mean every devotee has to become an anti-corruption activist? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Now, there is something which everybody see in the past, like also some people are by nature more revolutionary. They want to just change things. Some people are not revolutionary, they're more like reformers. So let's fix things whatever we can. So if something is unavoidable, then we may do it, but we do it within. So in the unavoidable, then there is something which you could say is conventional. Unavoidable means you just cannot do it without doing it. Cannot do a work without doing it. Another is something which is conventional means everybody does it. Now, somebody will decide, okay, I don't want to be a part of it, but if I'm not a part of it, then everybody else will get me into trouble. Then we may do it, but we don't take that part of the earnings for ourselves. Now we give it for some good cause. So whatever earnings are coming from that particular those shady dealings or whatever. So charity is not meant to whitewash immorality. But charity is a way to at least show this is not what I want. This is what I earned by my hard work. This is what I earned because of the system. It's not my hard work. I don't want this. So that way, if something is conventional, we can give a charity. And then something is intentional. Means we take the initiative in doing it. That is something which absolutely be avoided. So I would say that there are degrees in this. So now each person ultimately, now with respect to what is unavoidable. So when I say what is intentional means that a person deliberately chooses to do some ethical activity just so that they can have some shortcuts or earn some money more. That a devotee should not do. Definitely. Now with respect to the other part, where something is unavoidable or something is conventional, ultimately we have to live with ourselves. Because when we have to live with ourselves, we have to decide which is the best way I can live with myself. Sometimes we fight and get fed up with the fight. And then we start thinking, oh, why did I get myself involved in it? I should not have got involved in this. And sometimes we don't fight and we get fed up with the compromise. So in this case, I may need to decide in which option is it more difficult for me to live. So if we are going to take one path, each path will have its consequence. So now which consequence is going to be more disruptive for my life as it is? Sometimes for some people it may just be true that not fighting, especially somebody has a bit of a Kshatriya nature. Kshatriya nature doesn't mean they have to fight with weapons, but the fighting spirit is there. Now for them, when they see something is wrong, and if they don't do something to fix it, then they just feel so terribly restless with it. I can't live with this. So, for example, when Sita was being abducted, at that time, Jatayu saw it, and Sita saw Jatayu first. And Sita told Jatayu specifically. But she was also Shatra, and she immediately assessed that Jatayu will not be able to fight against Ravana. Ravana is too strong. And she specifically told Jatayu, don't try to stop Ravana. Just inform Ram that I have been abducted by Ravana. But Jatayu felt that Sita is being abducted. She's like my daughter. How can you stand by when she's being abducted? So even if I die fighting, I will die. So that was a devotional cause. But Jatayu at that time felt, I can't live with this. I can't live with this. Now Hanuman went to Lanka. He could have got Sita back. But he decided, no, this is for Ram. When Sita is in danger, he didn't just fight to death to destroy Ravana completely. He said, let's see what Ram wants. So he could have fought, he could have won, he could have died, but he came back. So we all essentially, this is the thing we do with ourselves, choose our battles. So for some people, they get into a particular issue and their mind starts beating them. Why did I do that? This is so complicated. Why did I do that? This is so complicated. If you are making a particular choice, then don't be resentful about the consequences of that choice. If you feel that something needs to be fixed up, something needs to be done, that's a strong drive, then take it up and they don't complain about the consequences. So each person will have to decide what is the way they want to contribute most effectively. It's happened with some devotees that somebody works in the government and they just want to be corrupt, but the whole there is a network of corruption. And then they not only decide not to be a part of it, but they decide to actually oppose it. And then that person, the whole system is again, and that person gets transferred to some God's forsaken place. And there they don't have even social power because they're very uninfluential post, and they are even away from devotees. So materially they are lost power, spiritually they are lost association. Now of course the devotee can say that there's an opportunity for me to share bhakti and create a community over there. That might work out like that. But if it is not working out like that, a devotee may decide that okay, there is this greed here, there is lust here, there is all these anarthas are there, and say corruption is because of greed. Now we could fight against the specific manifestation of corruption that are there in terms of greed that are there. Or we can say that by my practicing bhakti and by my sharing bhakti with others, we are working to remove greed from the hearts of people. So one is talk addressing the manifestations of greed. Corruption is a manifestation of greed. The other is addressing the root cause of that corruption, that is greed within the heart. So as devotees, we are trying to address it at the foundational level. So ideally speaking, a devotee who is practicing bhakti seriously will not give in to greed, certainly not greed at the level of unethical activities. The devotee understands karma. The devotee understands that actions have consequences. So it's not that when we are saying choose our battles, that doesn't mean that yes, that our society is going to hell and we are just watching it. No, we are doing what we are positioned to do. So we could say corruption is like a symptom. And greed is the cause. So now ideally speaking, what it is there are two things, Shastra and Shastra. So Shastra is weapons. That is used generally by Kshatriyas. So that is actually the domain of Kshatriyas. To work to stop corruption, to maintain law and order. Now greed, that is addressed through Shastra. And that is through wisdom. That is through a spiritual worldview. This is what Brahmanas do.
Check that the fanaticism is arising, when we can time to time check that when in our, within ourselves that fanaticism is arising, because sometimes it's so sublime and we understand that one size doesn't fit all, but we normally try to do something which is opposite of that, and there are two results which happen. Sometimes we get offended and sometimes we are offending somebody. So how to check that time?
Okay. So how do we check fanaticism from manifesting within us? First of all, knowing it is happening and then stopping it. Generally, see, when we talk about association, it is important to have like-minded association. So, for example, like I give an example, if somebody is fasting for Ekadashi, then it is nice for them to have some friends also fasting for Ekadashi, because we all have some sense of weakness. So then we can encourage each other. If some devotee, their primary strength comes from studying Bhagavatam, and they are very, very diligent about it, then it's good to have a social circle like that. So this like-minded association is helpful for I could say, deepening our bhakti. And we all talk about deepening our bhakti, it's important. but it's also important to associate, to have unlike-minded associations. Now, this should not be regular. I mean, it has to be, it cannot be as often as or as close as the like-minded association. But it's unlike-minded association that it can help is broadening our. And broadening our bhakti is just as important as deepening our bhakti. Deepening means I'm going deep inside and connecting with Krishna. But broadening means I understand different things from different perspectives. Different devotees come from different backgrounds. Different devotees are inspired by different things. So especially in the first 10, 12 years of my life, I was a brahmachari in India. I did college preaching mostly. Then after that, I said last 10 years or so, I've been traveling all over the world. And I met devotees from different countries, different backgrounds. And initially, many things that they did jarred me. How can a devotee do this? But then as I talked with them, I could see that they are still serious devotees. They have devotion to Prabhupada and Krishna, and they are trying to serve earnestly. And when we start broadening, that is when we become broad-minded. So unlike-minded association is also important. That means that if some devotees is behaving in a very different way as completely, very much, and we just can't connect with them, we can't relate with them. We feel this person is just a frivolous devotee, this person is not a devotee at all. But then we find others are appreciating that devotee. Why are they appreciating? What they find in this devotee? We could say that devotee is Maya and everybody is appreciating also in Maya. Well, that's a somewhat arrogant way of putting it. But then we try to, okay, what do you find so good about this devotee? They say, oh, this devotee does this. Okay. That's also important. So in spiritual life, there can be many activities that can inspire devotees. So it's like Krishna himself is multifaceted. So I may be approaching Krishna from here, and it's this aspect of Krishna that attracts me. But somebody may be approaching Krishna from here, and it's this aspect that attracts them. So Krishna, it is all attractive. That means Krishna can have aspects that can attract people who I don't find attractive. Like some devotees are very soft and gentle, and we may like them. Some devotees are very rough and tough and aggressive. I say, how can a devotee be like this? But there is something about Krishna that attracts them also. And bhakti is big enough that it can accommodate everything. So, especially if we have to work in an environment where the devotees have different dispositions, then it is good to spend time and talk with the devotees. And that way we'll understand them more and then we can broaden our knowledge. Does that answer your question?
My last question is Prabhuji, as you said that life itself is a dynamic and we also go through most of the broader arenas. There are 3 arenas which are like job, your family and your spiritual activity. But sometimes as you said that what we need to think is what is important and what is important now. So once we conclude that, but because we are not in isolation and that affects the others, and that results in, and maybe the reciprocation is that I'm not in line with the process, but my intention is not that. And which results in doing the service for Krishna, being fearful or being just fitting in the tribe, which is not my purpose.
Okay. So sometimes in our bhakti, we have to do things which are necessary to, as you said, fit into the community or to fit into the mood of where we are. That's true. Everyone needs to do that. But if there are some things that nourish us, some things that help us experience Krishna, then we need to make time for those. So we may do some things which others expect us to do. But if those are not nourishing us, then even in bhakti, there can be different activities. There are activities that give strength to us, and there are activities that require strength. Although ultimately all of bhakti activities give us strength spiritually, but at a personal, immediate, experiential level. Say for example, kirtan may give me strength, but japa may require strength. Feasting may give me strength, but fasting may require strength. Isn't it? So there are activities of both ways. So we need to balance. If we have to do certain activities that require strength, then we need to make time to do the activities that give us strength. And then what will be the balance among those two things? That will depend. That will depend on what we prioritize. See, when we are practicing as bhakti, as devotees, we may need freedom to do certain things, but we may also need facility to do certain things. Now, in general, we won't get freedom and facility both together. Say, for example, if we want to teach Bhagavad Gita, and then if at a particular place Bhagavad Gita is being taught in a particular way, maybe this is the post material, this is this, like that. Now, if we want to go there and teach, then we may have to follow that pattern. So, if we want the facility, then we have to let go of our freedom. But if we have a particular Bhagavad Gita taught in this way, then if we want that freedom, then we may have to create our own facility. We try online course, try nowadays outreach has been quite democratized. We do it in our own way. Say, if we go to a particular place where kirtan is happening, and we want to play a particular instrument, maybe we are good at that instrument, but if that instrument doesn't fit in that particular environment, then if we want the people in that group to hear our kirtan, we may have to conform to that. But that doesn't mean all kirtan has to be there. Then we can do kirtan with our own instruments, and we can do it online, we can create our own forums. So we will have to decide what we need most more. Do we need freedom more or do we need facility more? Generally, in the early stage of our life, it is better to not seek freedom too much. It is better to first learn service attitude. That means do what our seniors are telling us to do. But after a few years, 5-10 years in our bhakti, then we also start to understand our inspiration of how we want to serve Krishna. And then we may say, okay, this is what I want to do, this is the space I need. So then I will create my own facilities for it. So both are valid ways of serving Krishna. What we should not be doing is, if we are taking facilities, priority facilities, then don't be resentful that we are lost our freedom. But be grateful that we have the facilities. And if we are prioritizing our freedom, then we can use the freedom, but we can utilize that freedom. Don't criticize others. That means, okay, I have created my own space and I'm using it, but don't be criticizing that people doesn't understand, they didn't understand. No, it is, people are different. When Prabhupada was in India, he is got by his spiritual masters. Mission was there, the Gaudiya Mutt. And he wanted to carry on his spiritual master's mission. But then he found that he wanted to work with his god brothers. But they got caught in some parochial concerns, they started fighting over property, and they somehow lost the zeal for outreach. When Prabhupada didn't see that it was not happening, he was taking their facilities, but he was not moving forward. Then he decided he will go to America. And then he started with an outreach. Now, when he was going to America, he didn't write to all his god brothers, please give me some points. Or please give me. He didn't say that. He didn't do that. This was what he was doing. He needed that freedom, so he could demand facility for that. So we have to decide how best can I serve Krishna. And then decide whether I want facilities more or I want freedom more. Then accordingly we will follow. Okay? So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Srimad Prabhupada ki Gaura Bhakta ki
His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji. Let's loudly chant 3 times Hari Bol to thank you. So with this, we have a couple of announcements, small announcements I have. The first one, maybe I'm audible, right? My voice is anyways bad, so I can shout.